welcome back everyone to the channel. Side 3. You're here, I'm here. Hope that you're having a great day wherever you are. Hope the sun is shining down on you, or the moon is watching over you as you prepare perhaps to float away to sleep. Anyways, like I mentioned, we're moving on to side 3, The Wall, Pink Floyd. We're almost there. We're crossing over the Rubicon. We're crossing over the halfway mark, and there is no turning back. Here on this particular side, we're going to be paying attention and listening to the tracks. Hey You, Is There Anybody Out There? Nobody Home. Vera, Bring the Boys Back Home, and Comfortably Numb. Comfortably Numb, of course I know that track. And Hey You, I'm pretty sure I know as well, because I'm pretty sure it goes, Hey You, like that one. If that's it, which I'm sure it is, then I am familiar with that track as well. But everything else will be new material, first listen material. And let me just put this out there. You're here right now with me listening to side 3 of the album. Now, numbers don't lie. I'm recording all of this ahead, so I can't tell you what's happened before with the other sides. But everyone comes for side 1. A good majority will come for side 2. But usually side 3 is like that level where like not as many people turn out as the last 2. But listen, if you're here, you're part of the rare air. You're here with me, I'm here with you. We're going to have a great time. We're deep in it, and we're going to go further in and deeper in. So I appreciate you being here if you're here for the third side. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got to say. Let's go ahead and let it play. We're going to go to Hey You. We'll stop things as I see fit, discuss them as I see fit. And we'll see how it all fits in the grand scheme of things. We left Pink at kind of a low place last time, so let's see how things pick up from here. Let's go. That's all I got to say. Let's get into it. I love how that bass sounds. Let's stop at Hey You for just a moment. We'll go back, of course, and catch the song transition, but how great is that? Okay, so first of all, the guitar melody that it opens up with is just so starry-eyed, stars in the night, and then the fretless bass. The fretless bass is one of my top 5 instruments, okay? And genuinely, just the sound of it will make my goosebumps pop up. Make my hands stand up on end. It's just one of those sounds that I connect with, and I love how it moves. It is hypnotic, it is mesmerizing, and in a track like this, especially when it comes in on top of that guitar, the cosmos are swirling tonight. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And then, of course, when the scene comes in, it's just moody and sedated and kind of hopeful, actually. And if I'm catching the lyrics right from where we are in the story, this is almost like, from what I can imagine, like, this is Pink's conscious kind of talking and calling out for him, like, hey, it's not too late to get past this moment, to tear down this wall that you've built up. It's not too late. So it's almost like that final desperate cry, hey you, hey you, speaking of course to Pink. And I like that kind of isolated sound you get from the music, because it does sound very isolated and lonely. But like I said, there's this desperate plea behind it as well, a call for escape. And I think that the music perfectly captures that in here. The drum fills are perfectly placed in all places. Mason, those little tumbles, that's what I call them. Just those little tumbles across the span of the music is wonderful. Of course, Gilmour's guitar solo. Come on, like, it's powerful, it has range, it has tons of emotion. It brings it back down. I like that change that happens about 3/4 of the way through, just kind of hopping into some more standard chords before taking us back on that journey that this track has. It's catchy too. Did I mention it's catchy? Woo! This one's, oh man. And you know what's interesting? Actually looking at this. So it's actually Gilmour that's handling the fretless bass on here. Waters is just doing some of the vocals in this track, but Gilmour is handling the bass, the guitar, of course. And then James Guthrie is he's using a handheld power drill in here. I gotta tell you, I maybe I missed it, but I didn't hear anything like a drill in here. Oh man, they bring in everything, huh? Some people bring in the kitchen sink, some people bring in their workshop. Hey, you out there in the cold, getting lonely, getting old, can you feel me? Hey, you standing in the aisles with itchy feet and fading smiles, can you feel me? I like that line, standing in the aisles with itchy feet, like feet that are just ready to run. That's at least how I interpret it. And then fading smiles, like the people that smile at you are starting to fade as you build up that wall. But perhaps your smile is also fading because you're realizing, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I went a little bit too far. Don't help them bury the light. Don't give in without a fight. Don't help them put you even further down than you're doing yourself. You are your own worst critic. You are your own worst enemy in many facets. Don't give power to the people that are also going to come at you, for lack of a better word. Don't help them. No. Don't be a friend to those who are perhaps your enemies, in a sense. I like that line a lot. It's nicely inspirational. Hey, you out there on your own, sitting naked by the phone, would you touch me? Hey, you with your ear against the wall, waiting for someone to call out, would you touch me? Would you help me to carry the stone? Open your heart, I'm coming home. So yeah, this really does feel like his inner voice kind of talking to him and saying like, hey, all hope is not gone at this particular point. There is a way out of this. And I like that line where he says, hey, you with your ear against the wall. Like, even though this wall has been built up, he still has his ear pressed to it just to see if anyone's maybe talking about him or mentioning his name in passing. And you know what that makes me think of? That makes me think of like a funeral. Hear me out. I think a lot of people, maybe not everyone, but I think a lot of people have had that thought. If I died today, who would come to my funeral and what would they say? And I think this is kind of him having that same scheme of things in his mind. Like, he's put up that emotional wall and that block and he's completely isolated himself. But at the same time, he's still curious as to what other people are kind of saying and speaking about him. Are they speaking about him? Have they mentioned it? But it was only fantasy. The wall was too high, as you can see. No matter how he tried, he could not break free, and the worms ate into his brain. And then, of course, reaching back out, getting to the last line, we fall, we fall, we fall, which echoes in there. So this wall has been built up so high that it seems like it's too late. I don't think it's too late, especially because we have so much more music to go, but it feels like it's too late. That's a really great track, obviously musically, but the lyrics are quite sound here. It says here on Wikipedia that at this point, Pink realizes his mistake of shunning society and attempts to regain contact with the outside world. However, he cannot see or hear beyond the wall. Pink's call becomes more and more desperate as he begins to realize there is no escape. Okay, so whereas I was kind of interpreting that as like Pink's inner voice talking to him, this is actually Pink himself trying to escape. Okay, all right, I got you now. I picked up what you're putting down. And what we're going to put down now is the next track on the album, Is Anybody Out There, which makes true and great sense coming off of the last track. And I may just let it go into Nobody Home, which is the one after that. So let me back up just a second here. Back up, and then we're going to come right back here and let that transition play. Let's get into it. That's like from Echoes, right? Man, it was cutting them off so much. I got the obligatory. Okay, I want to stop it there. My mind was just like going with the music. We'll go back, obviously. But okay. Let's go back to Is There Anybody Out There? So, first of all, I thought that he had broke all his televisions and broke all his radios from before. We heard the poof, poof, poof. But we'll allow it. Maybe he missed a radio somewhere. There was something transmitting in there in the beginning. But what I really liked, two things I really liked. One, when the acoustic guitar came in, man. Gilmore, the rest of the band, obviously, but I'm just focusing in. Gilmore just sounds so good. He has this really great grasp and concept on melody, harmonies. Obviously the playing is great, but the way that he just plays with such emotion. He doesn't have to flare it up. He doesn't have to put on fireworks. He doesn't have to dazzle dance. He just puts it down, and it sounds so absolutely wonderful. It sounds brilliant and just passionate. I love his guitar playing and his bass playing, going back to the last track. But this was really cool. And listen, this may be a reach, but I don't think so. There was a little throwback to the ambient section and echoes in there with that. That I can't make this sound. But with that little sound, right? But then they, like, obviously that was definitely a music reference to that. But then they used that sound into forming like another melody just as an aside. So I like how they called back, but then used it to build into the present with this particular track. I just thought that was really neat the way that they did that. That was, like, I love that. Because the first part of that track was really just the radio transmission or the TV, whatever it was. But when it got from the guitar onward, that sounded nice. And then with There's Anyone Out There, Is Anybody Out? I'm sorry, Nobody Home, rather. With Nobody Home, this was like a realization, is what it sounded like to me. This was a realization that maybe they did go too far. Maybe the wall was built up so high that there's no communication with the outside. There is nothing that there's no getting through to that other side that he built that wall up for. So now he's just kind of self-loathing and kind of just sitting in his own isolation, really, and just sad, just depressive. The singing was equally depressive in there. Had almost like a slightly drunken blues number. And I mean, like, not happy drunk. I mean, like, someone that goes to the bar, spills their guts to the bartender. Bartender's like, this is a Wendy's, so I don't know why you're drunk here, and I don't know why you're talking to me. Do you want a number one and number two? Do you want a Diet Coke? Or, like, you know, it's that kind of drunk where they're just really down in the dumps and they're at their lowest point, rather. So I think that's where we're kind of finding Pink at that point, especially with some of those lines like, you know, he'll try and call home, but he knows nobody's going to answer. Of course, I would assume referencing his wife, or his past wife, ex-wife. But really also could just be a greater statement for anyone that he's tried connecting to, as a matter of fact. Let's get into the Wikipedia page for Is There Anybody Out There? So let me see if there's information on like what that broadcast was. Like, where is that from? It says Pink is watching a 1967 episode of a Western TV series called Gunsmoke. I know Gunsmoke. The episode is called Fandango. Okay, I used to love Gunsmoke growing up. All right, listen. I either watched Gunsmoke or Bonanza, right? There's always those two that were pitted against each other. I could never get with Bonanza. It just wasn't hitting me. But Gunsmoke? Okay, I only remember two characters. All right, at the end, man, when they got to the sheriff, they would say his name like... the way that his name was said at the end, like the actor, and... Matt, I think it was Matthew. Like, the way they said it always stuck with me. And then, of course, Kitty, right? Like, that was, woo! That brought me back. Because I used to love Gunsmoke. All right, so he's listening to Gunsmoke. Okay. He's having a little bit of Netflix and chill, except Netflix and isolate. And then he just, of course, repeats, is there anybody out there? Which, of course, he does not receive an answer. And then on Nobody Home... you have some more stuff that's being talked in some sort of transmission or TV on the background. It says Pink is still channel surfing and has switched to a 1967 episode of the Army comedy Gomer Pyle USMC, which I've never heard of that one, but that's what's going on in the back there. Lyrics there, I've got a little black book with my poems in. I've got a bag with a toothbrush and a comb in. When I'm a good dog, they sometimes throw a bone in. I got elastic bands keeping my shoes on. Got these swollen hand blues. Got 13 channels of blah, blah, blah on the TV to choose from. Electric light, second sight. I've got amazing powers of observation. Well, the only thing that he has to observe is what's in his immediate surroundings because he's cut himself off from everything. So, of course, he has amazing powers of observation. There's nothing else going on in this moment. And I feel like that's what he's kind of concentrated on. He's like, he's lost everything on the other side of the wall because he does try in the chorus. He says, and that is how I know when I try to get through on the telephone to you, there will be nobody home. He knows that, you know, he's already done the damage. He's cut off everybody else on the other side of the wall, and so he only has whatever is on his side of the wall, which is what he's kind of focused on here. I've got the obligatory Hendrix perm and the inevitable pinhole burns all down the front of my favorite satin shirt. Got nicotine stains on my fingers, silver spoon on my chain. Babe, when I pick up the phone, surprise, surprise, there's still nobody home. That's it. I've got a pair of Go Hill boots, and I've got fading roots. So when I think of the fading roots, I'm thinking of course, age, like, his hair is perhaps starting to gray, time is passing here, but also just the roots that he had set in his life with his family, his friends, his marriage. The roots are fading, and it seems like the roots may be even about to be pulled up, so to speak. Anyways, let's go ahead and move on to the next batch of songs, shall we? How often do you use that word, huh? Batch. Unless you're a baker. All right. Why did I even say that? Let's move on into, let's actually do the rest of this particular side. So, Vera, bring the boys back home, and then we'll just let it ride. We'll just let it go into Comfortably Numb. We know that one. We know what's coming. Let's get back up a little bit, though, here. Nobody home. Hold on. There's somebody home. That's me and you guys. All right, let's let it transition.
I got fading roots.
That's a hard transition.
Your lips move, but I can't hear what you say.
Or it could be an action.
I have become comfortably numb.
Okay, can you tell me with like all sincerity and all honesty, no matter how many times you and I have all heard Comfortably Numb, at this particular point, it still hits. Like, come on, right? Like, you could have heard it hundreds of times, and you may be like at the beginning of the song, you're like, all right, I've heard this one before, I know how it goes. But by the time the solos start to come in, I mean, it's just, you're in it. I think that you're in it. You're crowd surfing before you know it. Okay, to be honest, Comfortably Numb kind of overshadows the previous two tracks to the point I really don't have much to say on them. I mean, they're both sub 2 minutes, so there's not much to go into anyway. But like, it just completely overshadows it. Before I forget though, one thing I was thinking about Comfortably Numb, and I've heard it several times at this point now as well. But what I like about it, kind of now fitting in the story aspect of it, is the two solos and the difference between them. So at this point in the story, what I'm kind of getting is like, I think that they're finding Pink in like his dressing room, and like they're like, "Hey, you need to play. you got a show. So all this existentialism and all this drama that you have going on in your mind, now's not the time. You can do that after the show. We need you back on stage. Here you go. I got something for you that's going to get you right. Right? That's kind of what's happening right now. So mentally, just at this particular point, I'm kind of visualizing, of course, the doctor in the dressing room with him, and or wherever. I don't know the exacts, but okay, getting him prepared, giving him his medicine, and then they're kind of shuffling him up to the stage. They're kind of shuffling him up. They're like, okay, puppet, do your thing. That first solo, to me, represents the medicine. That's the shot going in. That's the drugs kind of kicking in slowly. That's kind of like the sedated waking up feeling. Was it a dream? Was that real? Like, that's the coming to. The first solo is the coming to, but the second solo is the coming out. What I mean through that is that second solo to me sounds like Pink erupting and exploding with all those feelings that he has, with all the feelings that we had all just listened to in the past two sides, especially in the last side. This is all those feelings coming through and speaking musically through that guitar solo, because the second guitar solo is noticeably harder, noticeably sharper, a little bit angrier. Of course, the music around that just becomes absolutely like rapturous. It's great. It's a wonderful little climax, of course, musically, but also I think lyrically and story-wise, perhaps. I'm curious as to see where the fourth side goes, but the way that it ends the third side here, I think is just a perfect cap on this particular instance and these particular scenes that were playing out before. But I just really like that driven emotional range in that second solo, because it really sounds like, okay, I will play on stage for you, and I'm going to let loose everything that I had just went through. I'm going to let loose all my pain, all my anguish, all my isolation, all these inner thoughts and inner turmoil that I had, the breakup and separation with my wife. I'm going to put all of that into this guitar solo. That's what it sounds like to me. Kind of like how with Funkadelic and Maggot Brain, how I don't remember names, so forgive me, but the soloist was told, imagine, I believe it was, you got news of your mother dying. I think that's what it was, and the emotion that's poured into that guitar solo. That's what I'm kind of getting at with the solos here. And like I said, we've talked about Comfortably Numb, before here on the channel. It's a great track. Duh. The melodies, the little things like the pinprick and the ding, and of course the screams after, the chorus, the slightly drugged kind of sounds, very hypnotic. It really does feel like coming out and waking up as a dream, and it's amazing. Duh. What else am I going to say about it that hasn't been said a million times about that particular track? So Vera seemed to really just be made up of the more sound clips. And it says here that Vera Lynn was a British singer who came to prominence during World War II with her song We'll Meet Again. So I thought that it was like a reference to like a past actress or something. And he's like kind of calling back to nostalgia, kind of looking back and saying, man, does anybody else remember Vera Lynn? And he's kind of looking back like, maybe I should have not done this, kind of like having a little bit of regret. And then Bring Back the Boys, which started off with kind of like this triumphant, I don't know if it was a victory march or more of a demonstration, but it sounded like an army march. And they're basically saying, bring the boys back home, bring the boys back home, of course, from war and that kind of thing. So I'm leaning more towards a demonstration. Don't let the children on their own. No, bring the boys back home. But then it changes again. And that's when it's moving really into Comfortably Numb. And we start to get all these little snippets from previous tracks in the album. So you hear, from Brick in the Wall, you hear the teachers screaming or whoever it was. Then you hear is anybody out there, of course, at the end, and the man answering. Like, all these clips begin to pour in. Pretty much everything's coming to a head. And then Doctor comes in and fixes it right up. Just fixes everything right up on there. It says here, just looking at the Wikipedia page for Comfortably Numb, see if there's anything of interest and of note here. Okay, something I just saw on the side really quick. So the album version, obviously, is 6 minutes and 21 seconds. Single version, 3 minutes and 59 seconds. Now, I bet you in the single version, they probably took out a chorus and they took out a solo. That's like choosing. Let me not say that. Let me say this. Do you guys remember that movie? What is it called? It had Macaulay Culkin in it, and he was playing like a bad son, the good son. Remember the choice at the end of The Good Son? Okay, that's what I'm kind of getting to, but now with the good son, bad son. This is just choosing between two favorite children. Which solo do you choose to say, hey, I'm sorry, you got to sit this one out? Can you really choose a solo to have one sitting out? I don't know. Doesn't sound quite right to me. It says here, to write the two guitar solos, Gilmour pieced together elements from several other solos he had been working on, marking his preferred segments for the final take. He used a big muff distortion and delay effects on the solos. So that's kind of interesting how he already had all this material kind of lined up and ready to go, but he basically said, okay, let's take the best of the best. Like, imagine Gilmour scraps, right? But he said, let's take the best of the best, take, some scrap here, take some junk here, put it together and make this monster of a machine, monster of a solo. And obviously, it has more than stood up the test of time. So that's where we are left here with side 3 of the album. It seems like perhaps this may be a turning point for Pink, or could we, in side 4, see a relapse of sorts? Who knows? Is this wall coming down? Or will one last brick be added to the wall? Who knows? I don't know. You guys know, but I don't know. But if you want to watch me know and find out what you know already, you can do that on the 4th side whenever that video is coming out. Because at this point, I have no idea when these videos are coming out. I'm just making them. I'm just the guy. But like I said before, if you're here on the 3rd video, not only if you're here on the 3rd video, but if you're here at the end of the 3rd video, thank you, because you are in that rare atmosphere. So I appreciate you being here. Hope that you enjoyed listening to the music alongside with me. Hope that you enjoyed listening to my voice, at least partially. I'm hoping that you more than myself enjoyed listening to the music, but I hope that you enjoyed me in part of it. Of course, you're more than welcome to follow me over on Twitter. If you'd like, you can support the channel on Patreon for as little as $2 a month. But otherwise, press that like button. Yeah, and that's it. Get out of here. I'll see you all later, guys. Bye.